Hi, this is Bethany with Morgan James Publishing, and today I'm speaking with our author, Ken Schuetz. And Ken is the author of Aligned Influence Beyond Governance, a better way forward for boards, executives, and their organization. And Aligned Influence Beyond Governance is an analysis of corporate, civic, and nonprofit profit governance that looks beyond policies to appropriate alignment, leading to greater effectiveness and sustainability. Wow, what a topic. Hi, Ken. Thank you so much for being here with me today to talk about your new book.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure, and we're so excited to learn what you have to share with readers. So, the first thing I'd love to do is just see if you could introduce yourself and give us a little bit of a background about yourself.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. So my name is Ken Schuetz. I'm headquartered in Colorado, on the Front Range of Colorado, just outside Boulder, a place called Longmont. Some of you might know that if you've traveled up and down the Front Range. I am the CEO and founder of a small consulting firm called Aligned Influence Consulting. And the creator of a new model for organizations that have boards and executives called Aligned Influence, the model. And this book is really the foundational book, creating the theoretical foundation, if you will, behind Aligned Influence, the model, and really provides the jumping off point from the model to the consulting work of if you were going to actually try to implement this, giving you a map forward. That's what I'm hearing from my readers is it really does give them a map forward, but a map forward that how the professionals of aligned influence could help them take those next steps to check their alignment, to get aligned, to lock that alignment in place, and then to use that alignment to drive effectiveness in their organization. So when I'm not doing this work, you'll find me in the classroom at the University of Colorado at Boulder. I'm an adjunct faculty there, focusing mostly on business philosophy and corporate governance.
Wow, wow. So you're definitely the right author to be talking about this topic. So, what is the connection between alignment and governance? Could you speak to that?
Great question. So for the last 40 years, we've all been talking about policies and governance. And policies are a really important thing. But what we've learned is that if, in fact, you apply policies to a misaligned, broken organization, you still have a misaligned, broken organization. And the policies are not as effective as they could be if in fact you had an aligned organization and then you put policies in place to lock that alignment in place over time. So what we've also learned is through this process is that alignment and effectiveness really is important. Uh, that when we talk about governance, that really connecting those dots that some people would say when we think about governance at this corporate level that governance is one of those things that costs effectiveness. That if you're going to focus on governance, that you lose some effectiveness. Or you're going to focus on governance, you're going to lose some profitability. And that I think what we're learning is that if we actually start with alignment, we now understand that an aligned board and an aligned executive can really do some things that they couldn't do before they were aligned. That some of their time was managing that overhead of their relationship, this misaligned relationship. And so now we can take that time that was focused on managing that misaligned relationship and direct that towards actually getting the work of the organization done.
Wow, yeah, that makes so much sense. So, you mentioned, the connection between alignment and governance. So, what is the connection between alignment and organizational effectiveness?
Yeah, I just talk about that just a little bit, that this concept of effectiveness is that we often hear books on leadership, books on management talk about effectiveness. And that, in fact, in an organization that has the complexity of a board and an executive, because understand that not every organization out there has to have a board. That those that have to have boards are the ones that essentially are managing somebody else's money. They're managing somebody else's money because they have shareholders, or they're managing somebody else's money because they have donors, or they're managing somebody else's money because they're a civic organization managing the taxpayers' money. Um, that when you have the complexity of managing somebody else's money, now all of a sudden you have to have a board that is protecting the interests of those whose money you're managing, the investors, the donors, the taxpayers. Uh, and and because of that, we have to really now connect the dots to managing that relationship, that alignment, and then using that alignment to produce effectiveness rather than that misalignment actually getting in the way of effectiveness.
Mm, interesting. Yeah, and you just definitely see how key it must be for that alignment to not only be clear, but also for everyone to be on the same page about it.
The same page is a really interesting point of view. That same page means that we have to define roles that we can then align. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, what a process. um, wow. So, why will reading Aligned Influence Beyond Governance help both board members and executives be more successful in their
Mm-hmm.
roles?
Mm-hmm. Great question. The that what most board members, anybody that's tried to find a way forward with making their experience on their board um, more effective for them and their organization, knows that almost all of those sources today have focused simply on the role of the board, sort of in a vacuum. Do this for the board, do this for the board, do this for the board, and then everything will be better. And that if you talk to the executives, you will find that that's been very frustrating for them, because that it at times that has really left them out. Such as, you might hear somebody say something like, the board thinks about the future, but the executive thinks about the now. You have an executive that says, wait, I don't think strategically, I don't think about the future. Well, of course the executive does. But in the past, in thinking only about the board, we haven't really thought about how the board's role thinking about the future and how the executive's role thinking about the future fit together in a way that are complementary rather than cause them to butt heads and have to be in a place that they're actually competing for power in that space of thinking about the future of the organization. Uh, so in aligned influence, you're going to see aligned influence speak both to the role of the board and to the role of the executive on purpose. Because in fact, one of the foundational points is that we have to introduce these two to each other in a complementary relationship rather than a relationship where they're really competing for power, which has in many ways been the outcome of many of the ways we've tried to do this up to this point.
Hmm, interesting. How interesting. Could you tell us a little bit more about what somebody will find in the book?
Yeah. So the book is really the book. If you haven't seen it yet, it looks like this. That has three parts. The first part really does an exploration of where we've historically been on this subject. The second part really says, if that's where we've been, where do we need to go? What do we need to do? And so lays out what has to happen and how aligned influence makes that happen. And the third part is, so if you've come to the conclusion that yes, that's where we need to go, now how do we get there? How do we get there in terms of a roadmap? I don't think what you're going to find is that this is a how-to book in the sense of fill out this form and everything will be done. It's a roadmap into, here are the big milestones that you need to get and the order in which you need to get them. And then giving you some sense of what you can do and where you probably need some assistance from somebody like the consultants at Aligned Influence that can help with that.
good. That was going to be my next question, because I do believe that this is probably going to be a book that people are going to pick up and they read, and they're going to want to figure out how to implement these things in their organizations. But that's going to require, some strategy and probably some delicate conversations and things that they could maybe benefit from having someone that has your expertise or the expertise of your organization. So,
Mhm.
if somebody would like to learn more about you beyond the book, or if they'd like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to find more information about you or about the book online?
Yeah, great question. So just alignedinfluence.com, www.alignedinfluence.com will get you to our site where you can find out about the professionals at Aligned Influence, more about that model, more about that pathway to get there, and more about the services that we would offer to help you walk that pathway.
Amazing. Well, Ken, thank you so much for spending some time today with me talking about your new book. We're so excited to see it available to readers everywhere, and very proud of your message, and really appreciate you spending some time really diving into your background and what this topic is all about.
Thank you, Bethany. Thanks for your time, and thanks to Morgan James for being the publisher.
Oh, our pleasure. Congratulations.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.